In the last video, I showed you how I rendered deer tallow to make soap. I'm Jamie at Soap Authority, and in this video, I'll show you how I measure out my main soap ingredients using my assembly line system to save time, since I will be making 4 different batches of deer tallow soap back to back. Are you ready to see my time-saving process? Then let's get that assembly line going. The first thing to do is unwrap and unmold the deer tallow. If you're using beef tallow, it'll look nearly identical, but it can have a slightly more yellow color, especially if the cow it came from was corn-fed. Both deer tallow and beef tallow help to make a whiter bar of soap, just like lard does. When cutting up tallow, I use a sharp knife and gently push it into the tallow to break it apart. It's really important to be careful and not use a lot of force. What I don't want is to cut myself or jab the knife tip into the cutting mat. I do suggest using a thicker cutting board instead of a cutting mat. Knives tend to cut right through the mat when you are cutting downward with the pointy tip of the knife, and you don't want to damage your countertops. You really don't need to cut your tallow into small pieces to make soap, but smaller chunks of tallow will melt faster. The next thing I'm doing is weighing out the amount of tallow I need for one batch of soap. I make sure to zero out the weight of the bowl so my scale only reads the weight of the deer tallow. The container I'm using is my large 8-cup glass measuring cup. I like to use the heavy-duty glass because I can melt down the oils and tallow much faster in the microwave. I'm going to use these little tallow crumbs all over my cutting board to get the weight exact. Since I'm making 4 separate batches of soap, I have 4 8-cup measuring cups because I'll be melting them all separately. I simply move the bowls down my little assembly line, measuring out the tallow for each bowl. The next oil to weigh is coconut oil. I have some left over from another container. Then I will be scooping it out of my giant 35-pound bucket that's on the chair here next to me. For my assembly line method, I simply put each measuring cup on the scale to get its share of coconut oil, zero out the weight using the tare button, then add the amount of coconut oil I need. I repeat this for each and every oil in the recipe. That way I'm not wasting time repeatedly pulling my oils off the shelf and opening each one again and again. My assembly line system works great if you're doing a lot of small, unique batches. All of the batches of soap today are the same recipe, but you can do this even if you have different recipes. Just make sure to pay close attention to what you're doing and label all your containers so you don't get them mixed up. Now I'm just going to add my olive oil. And last, I will measure out my castor oil and my oils will be all done. All of the containers will be covered with cling wrap until I'm ready to make my soap. I'll do the same process with my water. Alright, there you have it. That's how I set up my assembly line to prepare for making soap. I don't do that with all of my ingredients, but getting the oils and water taken care of really cuts down on the work to do on soap making day. I'm really excited to make some deer tallow soap because I'll be using 4 different color design techniques with 4 heavenly fragrances. Here's a sneak peek of what's next, and I'll see you soon.